You step outside and the heat hits you like a wall. The sun presses down on your skin. The pavement shimmers. Your body, within seconds, begins to complain, and your first instinct is to escape it. Find shade, a cold drink, a room with air conditioning humming quietly behind the glass. But here is the strange part. Your body was not built to flee this heat. It was built to walk straight into it. For almost all of human history, there was no escape from the sun, no air conditioning, no refrigeration, no cold glass of anything. Your ancestors lived in places that would send a modern person to the hospital in a single afternoon. Deserts that climbed past 120 degrees, open savannas with no shade for miles. And they didn't just survive out there, they hunted there, they traveled there, they raised children there. So how did they do it? The answer starts with something you are probably doing right now without even noticing. You are sweating. It sounds almost too simple. But sweat is one of the most extraordinary survival technologies ever evolved, and almost no other animal on Earth uses it the way you do. A dog cannot sweat through its skin. It pants. A horse sweats, but nowhere near as efficiently as you. You are covered, from your scalp to the soles of your feet, in roughly 2 to 4 million tiny glands called eccrine glands, and their entire job is to keep you from cooking alive. Here is how they work. When your core temperature rises, these glands push water up onto the surface of your skin. As that water evaporates into the air, it drags heat away from your body with it. You are, in effect, a walking evaporative cooler, and you are astonishingly good at it. And your body does something even cleverer than that. It learns the heat. Spend enough days in a scorching place, and you slowly begin to change. You start to sweat sooner before you are in danger, not after. You sweat more freely across a wider stretch of skin, and you learn to hold on to precious salt instead of pouring it all out, so your sweat itself grows lighter and more efficient. Scientists call this heat acclimatization, and it can take just a week or two to take hold. Your ancestors who lived in the desert were not simply enduring it. Their bodies were quietly tuning themselves to it, day after day, until the impossible became ordinary. The anthropologist Nina Jablonski, who has spent decades studying human skin, points out that this dense carpet of sweat glands is one of the things that makes us biologically bizarre. Somewhere along the way, we traded thick fur for bare skin that could breathe. We became the naked ape. But that nakedness was never a weakness. It was a cooling system. Lose the fur, expose the skin, let the sweat evaporate freely, and suddenly you can shed heat faster than almost any animal your size. But sweat alone does not explain how a human being could chase an animal across an open desert. For that, you need to understand something even stranger about the way you are put together. You are built to run in the heat, not fast, slow, forever. In 2004, two scientists, Daniel Lieberman at Harvard and Dennis Bramble, published a paper in the journal Nature with a bold claim. They argued that the human body had been shaped over millions of years for endurance running. Not sprinting, endurance. The ability to keep moving mile after mile, long after other animals are forced to stop. Think about what a cheetah actually does. It explodes into a sprint, catches its prey in seconds, and then collapses. Panting, overheating, forced to rest for a long time. A cheetah is a furnace with almost no cooling system. It cannot run for long because it has no good way to dump the heat its own muscles are generating. You are the opposite of a cheetah. You are slow, but you almost never have to stop. And in the brutal heat of an afternoon, that one difference quietly becomes a weapon. This is the secret behind something called persistence hunting. Have you ever heard of it? It is one of the oldest hunting strategies known to our species, and it works like this. A small group of hunters chooses a single animal, an antelope, a kudu, a wildebeest, and then they simply follow it. They do not ambush it. They do not outsprint it. They chase it at a steady, relentless pace under the midday sun. The animal bolts ahead in a panic, then has to stop to cool down. The humans keep coming. It bolts again. It stops again. And every single time it stops, its body temperature climbs a little higher because it cannot sweat the way you can. Hour after hour, the gap closes, until at last the animal simply collapses, not from a wound, from heat stroke. It has been run to death by a creature that refused to overheat. The naturalist Louis Liebenberg spent years in the Kalahari Desert documenting sand hunters doing exactly this. He watched them run down antelope in temperatures that would kill an unprepared person, and what he found was striking. Success did not come from raw strength or speed. It came from the ability to keep a cool head, quite literally, while everything else in the desert was forced to stop and gasp for air. So your body sweats. Your body outlasts. But there is a third piece to this puzzle, and it is standing right in front of you. Or rather, it is the way that you are standing. You are upright, and that upright posture is a heat strategy all its own. The biologist Peter Wheeler proposed something clever about this. When you stand on two legs, only a small part of your body, the top of your head and your shoulders, faces the punishing overhead sun. Compare that to a four-legged animal whose entire back is exposed like a solar panel from morning to night. By standing tall, your ancestors dramatically shrank how much direct sunlight fell on them. And by lifting their bodies up off the baking ground, they caught more of the cooler, faster-moving air that flows just above the surface. Walking upright did not only free your hands to carry things, it helped keep you alive in the sun. And then there is the most protected part of you. Your brain. Your brain is fragile. It runs hot, and it does not tolerate overheating well at all. Let it climb just a few degrees too warm, and it begins to fail. So how do you keep the single most important organ in your body cool while you are running across an exposed plain? Some researchers, including the anthropologist Dean Falk, have explored the idea that as our ancestors' brains grew larger, they also evolved better ways to shed heat. Networks of veins that could carry warmth away from the skull, working almost like a radiator built right into your head. Your body treated your brain like precious cargo. It engineered a cooling system just to protect it. But here is what is truly remarkable. Biology was only half of the story. Because your ancestors did not just adapt their bodies to the heat, they outthought it. And this is where human survival becomes something no other animal on Earth has ever managed to do. They learned to move at the right time. In the harshest deserts, people did not fight the midday sun head-on. They rested in shade or in cool dugout ground through the worst hours. And they did their hunting and their traveling in the gentler edges of the day. Early morning, late evening, the cold desert night. Have you ever noticed how a desert flips from scorching to freezing once the sun goes down? Your ancestors used that. They let the planet itself do half of their work. They learned to read water. In places that looked utterly dry, desert peoples knew how to find it, digging into the beds of vanished rivers where moisture still lingered underground, following animals toward hidden springs, collecting the dew that gathered on plants at dawn. Knowledge of where to find water was passed down like treasure because that is exactly what it was. They learned to cool the air itself. Thousands of years ago in ancient Persia, people raised tall towers called wind catchers, designed to snatch even the faintest breeze and funnel it down into the rooms below. Pair that with channels of underground water, and they created something astonishing. A form of air conditioning with no electricity at all, just clever architecture and the plain physics of moving air. In that same part of the world, they built enormous domed structures that could store ice straight through the summer. Think about that for a moment. Ice. Kept solid in a land that reached 120 degrees, made and preserved by people who had no machines, only a deep understanding of how heat moves and how to outmaneuver it. They even learned to dress for it in ways that seem backwards. In some of the hottest places on Earth, people wrapped themselves in loose, flowing, full-length robes, covering the skin instead of baring it, because those layers blocked the direct glare of the sun while trapping a thin cushion of cooler air against the body and letting sweat evaporate in the shade of the fabric. The desert had taught them a strange lesson. Sometimes the way to stay cool is to cover up. So step back and look at the whole picture. What kept your ancestors alive in 120-degree heat was never one single thing. It was a stack of solutions layered one on top of another, a body that sweats better than almost any animal alive, a frame built to outlast rather than outrun, an upright posture that hid from the worst of the sun, a brain guarded by its own private cooling system, and sitting on top of all of it, the one thing no other creature had, a mind that could plan, build, remember, and outsmart the very environment that was trying to kill it. You come from a long line of survivors who stared into the hottest furnace this planet could offer, and simply refused to be beaten by it. Not because they were stronger than the heat, but because they came to understand it better than anything else that lived there. And that inheritance is still inside you. The sweat sitting on your skin right now is the very same technology that let a hunter run down an antelope beneath a blazing sky 10,000 years ago. The pull you feel toward shade at noon, the thirst that tells you to drink, the wave of relief when a breeze finally rolls in. None of it is random. It is memory written into your body across a million years of surviving the sun. So the next time you step outside and the heat hits you like a wall, remember what you are really feeling. You are not a stranger to that fire. You are the descendant of the only creature that ever learned to walk straight into it and win.